Imagine a young Amelia Earhart at her first air show, watching the biplane soar through the air with the sound of the engines whizzing by and thinking, then going back to the merry-go-round. Yeah, apparently that actually happened. Hello everybody and welcome to History Abridged. It's history, just shorter. Today we're going to talk about one of the most famous aviators in history, Amelia Earhart. Who she was, what she did, and the mystery that surrounded her last flight. But mostly I just want to focus on her and her story. Amelia grew up an adventurous young lass. Some might even label her a tomboy. She enjoyed climbing trees, going sledding, collecting bugs, that sort of stuff. Apparently, one time she even built a ramp on their parents' roof and then rode just a box off of it. As she aged, Amelia set her sights high. She took interest in a lot of different subjects like science, poetry, mechanics. She even learned to play the banjo. She also served as a nurse's aide near the end of World War I. She kept newspaper clippings of famous or successful women who excelled in areas where women were less prevalent. Somewhere around 1918, Amelia and one of her friends visited an airfield. But this time she didn't have that reaction she had when she was a kid. She saw the airplane, specifically one that just gave a little bit of a dive bomb scare to her and her friend, and her whole world changed. She didn't, at that moment anyway, decide she needed to fly, but there was something different about her. A couple of years later, she flew in an airplane for the first time. And that was when everything really changed. She essentially dedicated her life to flying at that point. After that, she moved to California and started taking a bunch of odd jobs. This let her save up enough money so she could go get flying lessons. She was the 16th woman in United States history to ever be issued a pilot's license. After that, she started taking even more odd jobs, this time ones that involve flying and otherwise, and eventually saved up enough to buy her own little airplane. After a couple of years of flying, she started to get recognized, so she was asked to be the passenger on a flight that was flying over the Atlantic Ocean. She did it, and everyone was really excited because she was the first woman to ever fly across the Atlantic Ocean. But apparently, she just kind of felt useless the whole time. She was just a passenger, in her words, just a sack of potatoes. Nevertheless, that trip garnered a lot of media attention. Therefore, people saw her and decided that they could probably make a lot of money off her. One man in particular, George P. Putman, became her manager and had her endorse sportswear, luggage, published a bunch of her writing, and eventually had her design her own line of clothing. Apparently this was a partnership that worked really well for both of them, both professionally and personally, because eventually they got married and continued their professional partnership. Essentially, he became the organizer and she was the doer. All of this advertising and product pushing and just kind of overall general capitalism paid for a lot of her flights, including her famous solo flight across the Atlantic. She was the first woman to ever fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. Amelia Earhart actually set a lot of records. In addition to her solo flight across the Atlantic, she was also the first person ever to solo both the Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean on top of all of her other accomplishments. So, in 1937, she decided to go for the big one. She wanted to circumnavigate the entire globe. And that is unfortunately where things went wrong. The flight was going pretty well at first. She started in California and was kind of hopping between landmasses and eventually got to New Guinea, about 2/3 of the way. And she was supposed to take off in New Guinea and land in Howland Island. Unfortunately, she never landed. Apparently there were a bunch of unfortunate mistakes and miscommunications that happened that night. For one, it was cloudy, so celestial navigation was difficult. It was found later that her and her navigator were using inaccurate maps. So clearly they got lost. But what happened after they got lost is a little less clear. There are a lot of theories out there. From something as simple as they crashed on an island and died, to they crashed on an island and were captured by the Japanese and held hostage just in case war broke out between the US and Japan. In my experience though, the most obvious solution is usually, not always, but usually the correct one. So my take on the mystery is they got lost and ran out of fuel trying to get back on course and unfortunately crashed into the ocean and drowned. While I was researching Amelia Earhart, I found it difficult to actually find sources that talked about her and her life as opposed to just solely the mystery of her disappearance. And I found that kind of odd. I mean, I get it, because the mystery is, we're all, as humans, we're kind of drawn to mystery and the unknown and stuff like that. It's really dramatic, but I think Amelia herself is a lot more interesting than her disappearance. From what I could gather, she was an extremely passionate, driven, and intelligent person who just explored all that life had to offer her. She didn't really have a set goal until she was in her mid-20s when she discovered aviation. And when she found what she loved, she committed and followed it to the ends of the earth. Literally. Hey everybody, I'm back. I haven't posted a video in a couple months, and I apologize about that. I just kind of got lazy, I guess. But anyway, if you liked this video, you can hit that like button or subscribe button if you want to know when I put up new videos. If you have something to add to this episode, please put it in the comments. If you have a request for another video, another episode, please leave that in the comments as well. And as always, this is History Abridged. Thanks for watching.